Hey, this is Scott Spears along with Matt Morgan and Mary Ellen Withrow, 40th Treasury of the United States. This is going to be a shortened version of the exchange this week, a half-hour edition, but it's election wrap-up. And Matt was not with us last week because we ended up taping on Wednesday last week, which is our normal night, but Matt had to change his schedule because of the election, so he wasn't here. So last week we had Christian Pearson sitting in for him, and Mary Ellen we're so glad to have back with us now. And last week, I forget who the third person. Well, there were three people here. I remember that. There were three people here, but we had the election wrap-up, but we have not done it with Mary Ellen and Matt on this particular show. So Matt, we'll come to you first. We did a program, an hour program with Mary Ellen that you can catch on any streaming platform. Scott Spears Now, Mary Ellen Withrow. It's the election wrap-up, and we go through the whole thing. Matt, you were here, got to listen to that. What's your election wrap-up for all those people who have been wondering? You never told us how you voted. You're going to tell us now? It's all over now. Right on the spot, right off the bat.
He got you there.
Why hold back now? We know how it all turned out.
I did not. I didn't vote for Trump. I can tell you that much. So.
Did you vote for Chase Oliver?
Well, I either voted for Chase Oliver or Harris. One of the two.
Now, I'm being nice because I know how you voted, but I would not tell anybody. But now, still to this day, what is the reason you don't want to say, even though it's over now?
I don't know. People are just strange about politics, I think.
Are they going to pick on you?
Oh, people pick on me for... yeah, I mean, if I voted for Harris, we're in a very heavy Trump portion of town. And, you know, I've been blocked on Facebook by family members for politics stuff before. And if I vote third party and I let everybody know that I vote third party, then I have to deal with everybody telling me that I threw my vote away. So, you know.
Oh, you're being careful.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, that's weird, though. Now, it sounds hypocritical because I don't tell people how I vote. But really, if I was not doing journalism, I would tell people. I don't know what would be the reason not to. Mm-hmm. I don't tell people because it would seemingly, to me, there's a certain group of people who would think that I was against them if I told them, even though I'm not. And that's why you don't do it.
Yeah. Well... You know, my one daughter would say, "Oh, I can't swear on television."
That's right.
It's none of your business.
Yes. Well, and I think in the end, that's the truth. I mean, it is none of anybody's business how people vote. But most people like to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They want to tell you how they went.
Well, everybody knows how I vote. I mean, it's no question.
Now that's it. You know, somebody asked me, have you back in the old days of Republicanism, did you ever vote for a Republican for anything?
No.
Never did.
The only time I think I did once, I had a brother-in-law who ran for the House.
Oh, okay.
In Columbus, the state legislature. Yeah, I might have voted for him.
So for family reasons. Mm-hmm. Now, in that, when you had two people running for office in the family, was that tough? Two different parties?
Mm-hmm.
I bet.
A little bit tough. We kind of got into it.
I bet.
Yeah, we did.
But that could be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's. We'll talk about this in a second about what they're saying now about this Thanksgiving if we have time in this episode. But Matt, so what do you think? Here's how it turned out: Kamala 226, Electoral College, Trump 312. He won the popular vote, 75.5 million to 72.5 million. First time he's won the popular vote. Only the second time a Republican has done that since 1992. Only the second time a Republican has won the popular vote. What happened? Polls were all wrong. Everything was all wrong. What happened here? What's the story?
You know, I'm not sure. I think that early in the election, Trump kind of took off in the Electoral College, more so than I thought he would. But also, I think that, you know, like 2016 somewhat, I think there's obviously there's a hidden Trump vote somewhere, somehow, for some reason. Because, you know, in all the polls that were, you know, tallied up, averaged, I guess I should say, the Kamala was in the lead by like 1.2 points or something like that. And it was certainly not that close of a race. So, And I mean, even all the predictors were, were basically saying that, it's a 50-50 split race, but the race wasn't as close as I figured it would be.
What'd you make of Ohio? Sherrod Brown loses his seat after 31 years.
Ohio stayed blue for a lot longer than I thought it would.
That night, 2.5 hours it took.
As far as Sherrod Brown losing his seat, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, Sherrod Brown's been there a long time, but I mean, they spent a lot of money on ads. I mean, I've told the story at least 1 billion times now. But like, if like during the Super Bowl, it almost seemed like back-to-back Bernie Moreno ads were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were spending money on ads. So I mean, I can see why Sherrod Brown lost.
I was surprised. Now that was one that I was surprised about to the degree I couldn't understand why people felt Sherrod Brown was going to win, because Ohio was not a swing state. We didn't. You knew Trump was going to win Ohio. It was just how much is he going to win Ohio by? Bernie Moreno was his guy. They obviously spent a lot more money because every commercial you saw seemed to be a Bernie Moreno commercial. Every bit of literature I got in the mail, probably 9 to 1 was Bernie Moreno. It was not shocking to me that Sherrod Brown would lose that race. I would have been surprised if he'd won, because he was the last Democrat in Ohio. All the office holders statewide were Republican. I don't think he had one thing going for him statewide.
Well, yeah, he had all the things he did for the Ohioans while he was in office. People remember that. And I didn't think he'd lose because of that. I mean, he talked about how he helped the unions and how he, had that bill for the border. And he's being in office as long as he's done a lot of good things for people in Ohio.
I don't think he's going away, though.
Well, no, probably not. I don't know what he's going to do, but why, you think he's going to run for something else, you think?
Yeah, I don't think he would run for the Senate again, because I think that he would probably feel at this point, with the state's makeup, would turn out the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would take what he would consider a step down to Congress, but I do believe he would run for governor, because of what you just said. People do have a long memory of what somebody does in the state. Governor is a statewide election. Governor is, a lot of people feel, a more powerful position than senator. And it's going to be an open race this time. There will be no incumbent. And he certainly would have the name recognition over any Republican.
Right.
So
his name recognition is amazing at this point. Yeah.
And I think that would also make people like Amy Acton and Rich Cordray think twice if Sherrod Brown got in.
Is she? Is that a certain that she's running?
I talked to at least her people at the time, and it was just that she's strongly considering it. But I think if it ships, I do believe somebody would have a very difficult time running against Sherrod Brown if he would ever decide to do that. And I just can't see him just stopping at this point. And he certainly is not going to get an appointment in the Trump administration.
No.
So I think this might be his ticket at this point. It wouldn't surprise me, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah.
And he certainly would be a strong candidate. I mean, if the other side is Husted or some...
Yeah, I think... I don't think Houston is a very strong candidate.
Well, and I think that ultimately, being a statewide race, if you have the name recognition, which the Democrats have not had for governor in quite some time, that could help.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think Sherrod Brown goes away?
I don't know that he goes away. I think that, if he doesn't go away, I think governor is probably the thing that he's going to try for. But if he doesn't try for governor, he might try to be part of, like, an administration of some kind, maybe. But I don't see him running for another office unless it's governor.
What do you think happens to Kamala Harris? Certainly I don't think it's going to be president again. I don't think it'd be vice president.
She could run for Senate again, I suppose.
I think there could be that. Maybe governor of California. if that became an opening.
Sure, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
I certainly think if a Democrat were to be elected in 4 years, I think she could end up in the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
I can't understand what happened to California. They were so strong behind her, I thought. You know, it's such a surprise to me.
Well, you know what was interesting is that here Biden, who people thought was too old and so on and so forth, outperformed her everywhere. I don't know any place where
Yeah.
she did better than he did in 2020. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is something about Joe Biden. I don't know. You know,
he's a nice guy. Very nice guy.
It might just be Joe Biden's political experience. You know, he started when he was very young, and you know, he's been in there for his entire life. Very experienced.
Yep. He knows everything. I mean, you talk to him about anything, really. He's been involved all those years, and he knows so much.
You know, I did want to talk a little bit about the inauguration of Trump. Biden said immediately he'll be there. Kamala said immediately she'll be there. I don't know if we know about the Clintons and the Obamas. I would guess they attended the first time. Do you think it'll be the get-together? George W. Bush went the first time. I would imagine he'll be there.
What was wrong with him? He never came out for Kamala.
No, he didn't.
Every other Republican of any means did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And in the last days, there were people calling on him to do it.
Right.
You know, I don't know what happened with George W. Bush. I think George W. Bush feels a little put out by all groups at this point.
Do you?
I do. I think he feels his own party turned on him because they weren't even inviting him to the convention when it was Romney or McCain. They didn't want anything to do with him. And I think he certainly was not a fan of Trump with what happened with his brother. And then I also think that he's not really... I don't know. He seems to get along with the Obamas. For whatever reason, he gets along with the Clintons. But I never really saw a close relationship with Joe Biden or Harris with him.
Do you think it would be helpful to have George Bush out campaigning or doing anything for either candidate?
Well, I don't know about campaigning, but I think that it just makes a statement when the only other living Republican president says this is not the guy. Mm-hmm. I think it's more the statement.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd want him doing anything for me, but I thought he ought to be saying something about Kamala.
You know, and we had this throughout the process. I think that one of the mistakes to look back on the Democratic Party is that, you know, there was this idea, and we heard it from Christian, the young Democratic Party, 18 years old, who went to the convention, Christian Pearson. You know, don't put Hillary out there. Bill Clinton was not all that interesting. You know,
and that's killing me.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like there is this weird, because there are so many former. I mean, Jimmy Carter is still alive at this point. You know, there are so many former Democratic first ladies and presidents at this point, and high up people that people know, but yet there's almost this clash in there. For whatever reason.
Not anymore, I don't think. Is there?
Well, I don't think Pelosi and Biden are going to get together for Thanksgiving.
There is a problem there. But, I mean, she shouldn't have said some of those things. And he shouldn't have said some things either about the garbage.
The garbage, yeah. Well, and I think, what I really believe, and I think we'll learn this through time, is I think she did... because she's got some power. Yeah. And I think she did orchestrate him out the door. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he doesn't like her. And she said that. He's not talking to me, and I hope that he... Well, but then she said, I hope that we're able to make this up. And then she comes out and smacks him around again after the election. You're not going to make that up if you keep doing that.
Yeah, that's right.
So now I'm thinking, I think she's a little spiteful about the way he turned on her after... I think she's got a little chip on her shoulder about him.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So they're going to have to iron that out at some point.
Yeah.
Now, one person, here the AOC, put out a message saying, listen, if you voted for me and voted for Trump, tell me why.
Yeah.
And she got some interesting answers back.
I thought that was so smart. on her part.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
the answer for the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
You know, do you feel that there's been this idea that the Democrats are way too liberal now? And Kamala certainly wasn't. She went back to the center at the
she
end.
wasn't.
Do they need to go all out on the liberal end? Certainly, I think the Republicans have at this point.
I don't know about that.
It seems like when they go to the center, because Hillary Clinton was certainly a center.
From all of my political life, we were told to go to the center. Yeah.
And
that's where you should be.
Where is the country?
Well, you'd think it'd be at the center, but I don't know about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Now, do you think Trump is a center?
No.
No.
No, he's
So
not.
maybe people like extreme candidates.
I don't know. We're having trouble here with this tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of confusing to me because I'm not sure. Because it seems to me like people like AOC. She certainly is not a center. People do still. Bernie Sanders is still in office. He certainly is not to the center. It's the ones who are to the center who seem to get moved out. You know, I don't think we're going to hear from Kamala Harris for a while. We haven't heard a whole lot from Hillary, since the 2016 election. She comes out when she releases a book or something, but she's not actively, heavily involved in the party anymore. The Obamas aren't. I think we'd say they were center. Biden.
When John Glenn was running for president, he said, they told him to get to the center. I remember that. I think most Democrats tried to get to the center. You get too far out, you don't go anywhere.
It's interesting, though. The Democrats never seem to talk a lot about social programs, about Medicaid, and about...
Well, there are programs.
Right, and I don't ever hear that expressed a lot.
Well, they should be.
I would think. Because this came from Lyndon Johnson. A lot of that structure came from Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah.
And they don't seem... it's that I feel your pain. I understand that the groceries... I look at that now. We look at it backwards a little bit. Bill Clinton, when the recession was going on in 92, that's all he talked about. I mean, it was his strategist, James Carville's line, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah, right.
Kamala, she gave some ideas on the economy, but it really did become an election about Donald Trump. Is he fit to be president? And I don't think that Bill Clinton would have spent his time talking about George Bush.
No, he didn't. I thought Clinton's speeches were really good, too. I liked his speeches.
He still gives a good speech.
And Hillary's speech was excellent. Yeah.
And I think that surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, but it was excellent. Well, it surprised Christian. Yeah.
Well, see, that's an I guess maybe that's the point I was going toward. The Democrat has this great bench of people who clearly do not want to run for office at this point, but they're there. Are they used to their fullest extent outside of election time?
Who are you thinking of?
Hillary, Bill Clinton.
Well, they used them this time.
I think they brought them out around election time, but during the midterms and during things like that, do we see a lot of them?
No, they don't. They don't need to come out then, I don't think.
I don't know. What do you think we'll see in 26?
Well, you're going to see programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the main issue the Democrats need to concentrate on? They're not in power right now. What do they need to really get behind?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the prices if they come down during Trump's administration. We can't do that, but if they don't, we can use it on him. And he's going to do things. We're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about.
Well, that's the interesting thing. If nothing else, I don't think there'll be a slow news cycle. There'll be plenty of things to talk about. Matt, what's your final story on this election? What's the story of election 2024, the first presidential election you voted in?
I mean, not a very good one. I mean, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I haven't been a fan of Donald Trump, and and Donald Trump won. So I mean, I will say that I'm not. I'm not really necessarily pleased with the outcome. I mean, Bernie Moreno took Sherrod Brown's seat, which makes Ohio 100% Republican now. Just no good.
Issue 1 failed.
Yeah, issue 1 failed. I was in support of issue 1. Try to break up the 100% red we got going on. So, I mean, nothing I wanted done got done.
Well, here we are.
Me either.
Well, I guess there's always time. Mary Ellen, I did want to ask you, you spoke at Dinner with the Presidents back in the beginning of November.
Right.
How did that go?
It went great. Yeah. I like doing that.
Yeah.
And I had called him and told him I wasn't going to be able to do it because my face was a mess after this fall. And so then my face cleared up. And I called up Fred Malone. I said, Fred, I think I can do this. He said, okay. They didn't have my name in the program because of that, and I didn't have a table because of that, but I sat with Arthur, the table that Arthur had. He was, him and his wife. And but what they had done, they took the people that had signed up for my table and put them at this table with me. And I talked, what I talked about, I did a speech, it was pretty much the same speech I did in Cardington for the people over there.
You also did that event.
Yeah, I did that event before this, and I talked about my life in public office and what I did in each term, and I told him, I said I really loved working in government. I said it's the more I worked with it, the more I worked for it, the more I respected it, and I was trying to get across the working in government, what it meant to me. And so I went clear through the whole thing, and I only talked about 15 minutes probably, maybe less than that. And I had no notes. I was totally off the cuff, and I feel good about myself when I do that, off the cuff, Yeah.
I think that's good, to be able to, speak extemporaneously to a group like that.
Yeah, I don't do that very often, but once in a while, once in a while I do that.
When you were out prior, like at Dinner with the Presidents and at this event in Cardington, were people talking about the election coming up?
Yeah, Cardington, that's all they talked about. Yeah. I told him I'm not running for office when I started to talk. Yeah. That's all that was on anybody's mind, I'm sure.
It's these areas in Ohio, I'm always curious what drives people to vote the way they do.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah. I mean, on a local level, what is the driver? Because I don't know. It doesn't seem to be social issues. I don't know that it's money. I mean, I don't know what really drives people, because it really is diverse when you think about it. I mean, people talk about Ohio. Yes, we've went 3 times for Trump, but we also went twice for Obama. We went twice for W. Bush.
Yeah.
We went twice for Clinton. I mean, it's strange that Clinton voters, who I'm sure are still around, became Trump voters, and Obama voters became Trump voters, and W. Bush voters were Clinton voters. And I don't even know if the party at the top of the ticket, I think down ticket means something, but I don't know if it means a whole lot at the top. I think people just look at the person and say, is this the person I want?
Well, they listen to them on television, and they make that decision on whether they like them or not. They say it helps to be if you're a man, to be a big man helps, but then we've got smaller men in office too. It's interesting what turns people on.
Matt, do you feel the democracy's in trouble?
I don't. I think that Donald Trump will try to challenge some of the guardrails put in place, but I think that ultimately I think that the guardrails put in place will withhold. I mean, after Trump's first presidency, they even updated and added some new guardrails. So. They even beefed them up for him.
They forgot a few.
I don't, for whatever reason, I think people better pay attention to this Supreme Court ruling. Because I've even heard historians and people of that nature say the courts can only make a ruling. They can't enforce it. Mm-hmm. The Attorney General has to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And if they don't do it,
mm-hmm.
who's going to enforce it?
Yeah, and we've had a lousy Attorney General during Biden's administration. I think he's been lousy.
That's one thing we didn't talk, Merrick Garland, that's one thing we didn't talk about, is a lot of people felt that if Merrick Garland had immediately, as soon as Biden got in, charged Trump mm-hmm. and had the trials, he wouldn't have been able to run because he would have been a convicted felon then. Mm-hmm. He waited too long, and it did look like he was being persecuted for running.
Yep.
In the end, maybe that mattered too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He just wasn't doing anything that I liked.
Well, and I think he basically got that job because of being Obama's Supreme Court pick that didn't get in.
Yeah, that he thought would appease the Republicans. Yeah.
Now here's a question: because we've seen the Secretary of State, we know the Secretary of Defense is going to be the Fox News guy. We know who the Chief of Staff is going to be. Who's going to be the Attorney General?
Yeah. Look out.
Somebody said Rudy Giuliani.
No.
You don't think?
No. He's in debt so bad. He's paid out millions of dollars. I
heard he's living on the street.
Yeah, he said he didn't have money to buy his lunch. Yeah.
But he might get a pardon.
Well, yeah, probably everybody will. Yeah. The people that were put in prison because of
the January 6th rioters.
Yeah.
Well, now that might turn people in the country, because I think when they give the pardons to big people like Giuliani, I don't think people blink much of an eye at that because they think, well, we expect you to do that. But I think when you start pardoning people who are on the local level, you'd go to prison if you did something like that, I think that takes people off.
Well, it should. And they've been talking that Biden should pardon his son.
That's the big question.
Yeah.
I would put serious money on that happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he should. Yeah.
I don't think that Biden, who loves his son, that there's any way that he could leave office with mm-hmm. Trump coming in, knowing that he's most likely going to get prison time. I just don't think he could do that. But that's the way it goes.
It has to happen before he leaves.
And he's got 70 days here.
Yeah.
I would think he would do it, but we'll see what happens. It was an interesting election. It was an interesting election season. It certainly was unprecedented for a lot of reasons. A candidate dropping out in the middle who was a president. You had a female running again, this time a multiracial female. That had never happened before, gotten the nomination. Convicted felon won the election. That had never happened before. So a lot of firsts this time around. But Mary Ellen, is there still hope? What's the hopeful message for people who need hope these days?
Oh, well, you can always hope.
You can always hope.
That's right. You just have to hope, and I hope we can hope.
and as somebody said, hope dies last.
Yeah, right.
You have hope until everything else is gone.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see what happens comes January 20th, but we've got time between now and then. Who knows what will happen? I think Biden will put some things in place.
Yeah, I think he will. I hope he can get them put in place.
And he's got a favorable Senate, at least at this particular point. Mm-hmm. And there are those executive orders. So at this point, we'll see what happens. But for Matt Morgan, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, Scott Spears, wishing you all a good time in your life, whatever you're doing. We're heading for the dugout.